Mic check.
1 2 1 2. All right, so we're making progress.
Mic check. 1 2 1 2. Mic check. 1 2 1 2. That was the
yeah,
that's the delay between us and the stream.
Jeez.
1.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Midgar Minute podcast. I am Chris, joined as always by my lovely and faithful co-host Nick. Nick, how you doing this fine evening?
You know, I'm doing quite well, man. I'm looking forward to today's chapter. It's a chunky one.
Yeah,
Last episode's chapter was a little thin, but that's not going to be a problem in this episode.
Yeah. No, I'm excited. This is definitely we got a little bit more meat on the bones this time as compared to last chapter. But before we get too ahead of ourselves here, I just want to, of course, give a special shout out to our lovely folks over on the Mosey Gang who are listening to this live and chilling in the Discord there. See you all, you guys there. How you doing? But those special folks that I want to talk about are sorry, I'm definitely not vamping. Scott, Kyle, AJ, Danny, Kevin, Jillian, Brienne, Matt, Sam, Charlotte, Cameron, Garrett, Dan M, Ryan, Petros, Matt M, Thios48, Colton, Tone, Kimmy, Chris G, John, Flynn, Jim, Joey, Trey, special shouts out to Trey, and Carmen, special shouts out to Carmen as well, Gracie, Benjamin, Lucas, Justin, Alex, Chris, Ellie, and new supporter to the Mosey Gang, Andrew. Big ups, Andrew. Appreciate you. Hope you love hanging out in the Discord and seeing all the crazy shenanigans that we get up to in there. And if anyone listening, if you'd be interested in supporting the show, we have links all over the place in the episode description and everywhere, and social medias and whatnot. You give us $1 or $1 a month, or what? You can give us whatever you want. Honestly, I'm not your mom. And you get access to our Discord. And, we do fun stuff in there. We're talking, there's a bunch of crazy theories we talk about in there, and just a bunch of other random Final Fantasy and non-Final Fantasy related stuff. And you just, it's there if you want it. You don't have to. It's alright. We're just happy that you're here if you're listening. We just, we appreciate your time over anything else. But with that out of the way, man, this chapter is a big one. It's a big girthy one, and don't quite know where to get started, but I guess we'll just start. I mean, the beginning of this chapter is what the Junin section of the demo was, so we kind of already knew kind of the setup here a little bit and how things were, and I don't know. What do you have any opinions or anything on the Junin region? And I mean, because it's not that much different from the grasslands, really. It's just a different time of day, I guess, for a little bit at least. I don't know. I feel like there's not too much to say about Junin, the region of Junin, until we get to like Lower Junin and Upper Junin as well.
But there was one thing that I did find cool, at least like aesthetically with the Junin region, is again, this game went a little bit further into the lore of like the Republic of Junin and what it was like before Midgar really started to become an empire. And I think it's really cool that you see like the remnants of like an industrializing society laying around, like a lot of relics to like.
You see a lot of the relics
technology.
and stuff, the ships and things that have, that are wrecked on the coast and stuff, and being by the water and everything too. I think that's like our first real,
Yeah, it's the ports.
Yeah, because we can see a little bit of the grasslands from, or the ocean from the grasslands, but this is the closest that we get. And yeah, honestly, I feel like even though grasslands is kind of like the tutorial area, I feel like Junin was when I really started sinking my teeth into stuff and like really exploring, because no shade on the grasslands, but it is just the grasslands. There's not too much going on over there, and didn't really feel too like fulfilling to explore. Really, I felt like it was just kind of like, oh yeah, you have the little like Midgar outskirts area, which was like kind of deserty and everything, and you have Calm, and everything else is just kind of grassy plains and farms and stuff like that, and the swamp and everything. Didn't really I don't know, didn't really like tickle my exploration bone at any point really until we got to Junon, and then you seeing all this, shipwrecks and all this other crazy stuff, and you're like, oh, what's that? And and no offense to Pico either, but I might like the Arjunon Chocobo the best. I wish I could remember their names, because I can only remember Pico because I feel like Pico's the only one that ever gets mentioned by name. But I think they all have names. But our mountain climbing Chocobo.
Excuse me.
And yeah, I mean, like I said, it's not really, since we had covered this area in the demo, I wasn't at least initially, was like, oh yeah, let me kind of go a little bit beyond stuff, but I really just wanted to get to where the demo ends, which, once we get into under Junon, and we meet Rhonda, right, was her name? That was like the mayor of, is she the mayor? I don't know, actually. Is she the mayor of Lower Junon? I guess so. There's another thing that's like not explicitly mentioned. I guess you just kind of assume that she is. And she says all the bounties that everyone has on each other, and Aerith is got a little of that extra dough. And yeah, I like I like the setup. I like Rhonda. We don't really get to see her all that much, really, outside of Junon, I guess for obvious reasons. But
can I cut you off for just a quick second?
Yeah, please.
So she does confirm that she's not only the mayor, but the sheriff.
Oh man, wearing two hats.
She's wearing two hats, baby.
two big pointy hats.
I'll say it.
That's awesome. Hey, like and now I'm thinking about it, because I feel like they do make a more of an effort to make the mayors and the other like townsfolk, or like principal townsfolk in these villages and towns, be a bit more than just like, oh yeah, you're an NPC. Like you get a little bit more. And like I said, I don't need a full like chapter about Rhonda. I don't need a Rhonda DLC, but it's nice that they give them a little bit of extra something, and give them a little bit more character, and something where, like, as if Rhonda was an OG, I don't remember her. If you probably, I don't know if it's no,
there's no Rhonda in OG.
Yeah, it's because I'm pretty. The only thing I really remember about Lower Junon is the girl and the CPR mini game, and fighting the monster of the deep, or whatever it's called. Which I guess would be a good time to kind of segue into that. This is our first introduction to Yuffie here in the entire game, and initially in the demo, when I saw that because it ends right before or right after that fight, and I was like, oh, okay, like, because one of the biggest questions I had coming into this game was like, how are they going to introduce Yuffie in a way that's not like, because they couldn't really do it the way that it was in OG, I feel like, because they obviously, instead of her being optional, she's obviously going to be part of the party at some point, right? So it's like, I was always wondering how they were going to work around that, and I think the way that they went about it here was like, we get introduced to her here, and then she fucks off for a while, and then we don't see her. We kind of just get her a little bit, and then, obviously later on in Costa del Sol, she joins us, and, it all feels natural, and it doesn't feel like it's like shoehorned in or anything, right? So I always was kind of like worried about that also, that I was going to feel a little like forced, I guess. And I didn't feel that at all. And I actually honestly think it was a great way to introduce her in here. And yeah.
Well,
this was.
I'll say this, and I mentioned this in an episode we did way back, like when the demo dropped. Mm-hmm. But what I loved about this was just setting this tone early, and also Calm did this as well. But this also, in a way, sort of just built upon that further. That, like, look, you tried to bomb those reactors, and you're not going to be able to freely navigate the world without some hurdles to jump over.
Yeah, like there are going to be people. I'm surprised there hasn't
but it
been
feels
more.
like you basically are eco-terrorists, and then you can freely navigate the world without that being any like consequential at all.
Right,
I did really like that in Rebirth. It's like everywhere you go, the most informed people seem to know who you are, what you've done, and they either choose to work with you, against you. There's just those moving parts around the main cast in the world that make the world feel so lived in. And again, it's everything we wanted from this new retelling of FF7.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And I think just those little smaller details and that, we've talked about before that I feel like really elevate things even to that nth degree more. And, something that just you wouldn't even think of really like, oh, maybe we should do that or this, to flesh it out. Like you wouldn't think something that small would do anything really in terms of like your immersion or whatever the storytelling, but it really does. And I feel like it does because you have that sort of ludonarrative dissonance, right, where it's like, oh, these guys, Shinra's air raiding calm and doing all this crazy shit, but then it's like, oh, we're just able to wander around maybe. And and hey, for the grasslands, sure, it's very wide open, there's not a lot of people, you could expect that, oh yeah, they can travel a bit more freely without people being like, hey, aren't you like, the most wanted people in the entire planet right now? But then yeah, once you get to a more populated area like Junon, they do, set that up. And I do feel like it's a good call on their part to, sort of establish. And then we kind of, and we'll talk about later when, when we talk to Rufus, and that whole situation that happens, and I'm like, oh, they're gonna address it in this way, and then they're just like, nah. Like, we could do it like that, but nah. But I definitely agree that it was a really nice touch. And speaking of touches, this boss, was it Terror of the Deep? I think that's what it was called.
Yes,
yes, Terror of the Deep. Boy, did he kick my ass a bunch in the demo in the first time, because I'm like, still trying to get used to all the new stuff and everything, and but I think again, it's one of those boss fights that is just kind of like, it was good, and it was engaging, and but it doesn't kind of, I mean, even kind of like the Midgard Stormer, or not. No, Midgard Stormer I think is better than the Terror of the Deep fight, just in general speaking. But maybe like the Mithril Golem, kind of just like, oh yeah, all right. Well, I remember we had to fight this thing,
Well, yeah, what I was gonna say is what I like about Terror of the Deep is it sort of refocuses the player on long range combat, which is a very easy thing to lose sight of, just because, for the most part, the general consensus seems to be that like melee combat is more fun, playing as your Clouds, your Tifas. So I do like that this boss in particular sort of insisted upon using more long range abilities, be it Barrett's gun, Aerith's magic, things of that sort, especially since it's not right before, but leading into Yuffie joining your party, where again, she primarily
the
is
ultimate range fighter, or I guess the ultimate like all-rounder, really, because she's good at range and close up. But I feel like Yuffie, especially, and we'll talk about more when she actually officially joins the party, but it's because she ends up being like one of the most broken party members, so I'm kind of glad that she didn't immediately just join in, and and also I feel like it would have, considering like this new narrative that we have here, I don't think it would have slotted in that well. So I think that she, it is, like you said, kind of a nice little, like, we've been playing as Cloud, and even though Cloud has some, his like blade beam and all that stuff, and kind of has a little bit more like ranged options, compared to the 0 that he had in Remake. Yeah, and maybe if you think about the bosses like that, where they're kind of more, they're all trying to teach you a certain thing in a way. Maybe not explicitly. Some of them a bit more so than others, but they're definitely trying to get you. I feel like every boss battle in this game does try to, like, hey, if you're used to playing in a certain way, it may not be the best, lineup for this, or the best way to tackle this boss. So it always kind of, in the same way that Remake did, they always try to push you a little bit and be like, oh, like, really use the systems, really use these characters and their strengths, and get good at juggling between everybody. Because I feel like even like Midgard Summer was kind of, a bit more like, tutorial bossy kind of. It wasn't like too much. I guess the Materia Guardian was technically the tutorial boss, but I don't know. Midgard Summer still feels like a tutorial boss to me, because that's like, oh, this is your first like party fight. So then you're getting into the groove of things like that. And then here, like you said, yeah, it's more about, switching between your range characters, and then we get the lovely, trapping mechanic that a lot of these bosses seem to have at least some version of, and they love to use. And then navigating around that, and yeah, it's definitely, it was the first kind of like, it was the first fight that made me sweat a little bit, but in a good way, and it was, I felt, accomplished afterwards, and I'm like, yeah, this is, and I would say that about pretty much all the boss fights in this game. As at least from my memory right now, there's nothing really screaming out at me, being like, oh no, this was awful. And if it was, I feel like it was something like, like the Hellgates. And I'm like, I feel like I just didn't understand the mechanic or soon enough, and that's a user error thing, which I'll always that'll always be the first culprit for me, is like, oh, user error. Like, I'm not gonna, like, oh, this game sucks because it didn't hold my hand and tell me exactly what I need to do. But yeah, it's totally fine boss fight, totally fine. I was also kind of curious to see how it was in motion, because we only saw a little bit of this enemy during the trailers and stuff, and in the demo, of course. But it was, I think in all the, like, the second phase and stuff, and yeah, just a well designed fight in a well designed game. Groundbreaking commentary, I know. But
Well, I'll tell you this. One thing I wasn't a huge fan of was sort of introducing Yuffie in this way. I don't know, I almost feel like it didn't quite feel natural. Like,
it does, and because I know we were kind of talking about that before, it does feel a little bit kind of like, oh, we have to put her in somewhere, and this seemed, I guess.
And I would have liked it, because she's like scared of the terror of the deep, which is a tough sell. Yuffie's eyes are usually bigger than her stomach when it comes to her opponents.
Yeah.
It would have been cool if her being on that little rowboat was enough to make her motion sick. And that's why she's like, I can't even do this right now.
Like, oh, nope. Nope, I'm already done. I'm already throwing in the towel. Yeah, but I feel like, we get enough of that later on.
Picky. I want to say that's me being picky and looking for something to criticize.
Yeah, I feel, yeah, because no, I could definitely agree that it definitely threw me off guard for sure, because I'm like, how is this gonna go down? And then them doing it this way, like it, and as we kind of see later in how she's involved with certain things, it makes more sense, I feel like, as time goes on, where I'm like, okay, like, I don't know where else they could have put her in, instead, unless she just legitimately just showed up out of nowhere in like Costa del Sol or something, and just was like, hey guys, I'm joining your party now. Which I I also like how she's just like, oh yeah, I want to join, and Cloud's just like, nah, and Barrett's like, nah, we're good. We're good on that. Yeah, I guess, yeah, and Bree just pointed out in the chat that she did kind of show up out of nowhere in OG, and I guess that would be true to form. I guess if she did just ninja poof in, just be like, hey guys, I'm here now. I'm your problem now. I was. Are we bummed about no CPR minigame? I kind of wanted a CPR minigame.
No, considering all the mini games in retrospect.
Yeah. In retrospect now, yeah. But I think initially when I was first playing through, I'm like, oh, we're gonna have a little CPR rhythm game go on, and then but then no, they decide to use that moment to turn Cloud into a creep, a perceived creep. At least from Yuffie, and then she does her little breakdance and has her moment. But then I also like when after we finish the fight and she goes off, and then you go back up the stairs back to where the hotel was, and then she just comes screaming in from around the corner doing her Naruto run, and she's like, hey, you guys looking for a teammate?
I love that because for a split second I thought my game was like bugging out.
Yeah, because it tracks onto her. Yeah, I thought like it was like a horror game almost.
Yeah, I was like, what's going on?
Like what's happening? Yeah. Why are you taking control away from me? But yeah, I mean now I'm just thinking about a Yuffie horror game. Or Five Nights at Yuffie's.
Yuffie's. I love it.
But yeah, no, that's but yeah, and then okay, and then I guess we'll talk about all the conversations in the hotel, which I love that you kind of this game has made me like a little bit more like anytime we get to a new town, I'm like, oh, we're gonna go to a hotel and have like these really difficult conversations. But I do like this is kind of also your first time where you go to everybody and you have your own little, everyone has their own little thing that you talk about them with, and Barrett's being like, what the hell's that kid's deal? And I've always picked, she just wants your autograph, and he's like, oh, you know what? We are kind of kick-ass. I can see why someone would want my autograph, even though I'm a felon, wanted by the state. Hey, it's pretty good. It'd be worth a lot on the on Shinbei. Oh, and this is our first time hearing Red's other voice, right?
Yes,
his real voice.
All of us knew it was Red.
Yeah. And it's at first I was like, oh, maybe it's somebody else, but then it's very clearly Red. But I like that they try to play like coy about it, and they're like, oh, who is that? I don't know. It's just me and Red here talking. There's no one else. It's nobody else in here. But I guess really the one that really, of course, stings the most is with Cloud and Tifa. Man, they might have some of the best like conversations and
great chemistry,
dialogue and chemistry. Yeah, in this entire game, and you know what? They should. They honestly should, because they know each other technically the best and the longest.
Only ones who have known each other before all of this.
Yeah. So, and even with all the crazy shit that has gone on, you can still get that feeling where even though it's later, Tifa later reveals that she's just trying to test Cloud with all these little, like, hey, you remember this guy from Nibelheim and this and that, and but the thing that really kills me the most is when she's like, oh yeah, remember, I forget the guy's name, but whatever, he was like some kid from there, and then she's just like going off about like, oh yeah, like I saw him the other day, and then she stops, and then she's like, you don't care, do you? It's just like, oh, and then he's like, yeah, nah, but you can talk though. I'm just like, oh, Cloud. Oh, my sweet summer boy. It's just always, it's so hard. It's so hard to watch. It's so hard. But
I don't know, man. For
it's
me, it's like I live for
still,
this. I live
it's
for
my
this. I know
favorite
what you
though.
mean. Like it's hard to watch, but I'm like, yes,
Yeah, like, yes,
yes.
please talk, please.
This is what I think.
In a game filled with, hey, just talk. I'm glad that you guys are just talking, even though we don't get any sort of closure from this for like at least another 10 hours.
Good, good. String me along.
Yeah,
Put
just,
me on
she's,
the edge of my seat. Do it.
you know, poking at the cracks in the armor, in the facade. Um, but yeah, it's still, it's still rough to watch. But like you said, it does need to happen, and I'm glad that they do it. It's still painful. It's still, and all the times when she's just like, and then whenever they show a shot of like, you everything from like her nose down essentially, so you can't see her eyes and you can't see, like, I always love in games and movies and stuff when they do things like that, because it's kind of a subtle way of being like, oh well, you can't, you're the intentions of this character are maybe shielded, or maybe they're trying to hide something that they don't want the audience to know, or you to know. Like, it's just like minor visual storytelling, stuff like that. With all the other great storytelling and dialogue that's in this game, they also do a really good job of all that like minor subtle storytelling stuff.
Yeah,
And
I
that
could
little,
not agree more with that assessment.
yeah, no,
Honestly, and we've talked about this on the podcast numerous times. It's also their use of like facial expressions, right,
mm-hmm.
and little sort of body language cues. There's little things like that that bring like again a lot of this to life in a way we could have never imagined.
Yeah, saying a lot without saying anything at all, right? And it's
Yep.
very, now that we're in the age that we're living in now, where they can do these sorts of things and have those little micro expressions, and you can sort of be like, oh, what, instead of it just being a JPEG with stretched over a polygon that can't animate really, aside from having their mouths open forever. It's great, and it really just elevates it all to another level. And I will talk about it. I don't care if I talk about it every episode. I will, because it still amazes me, even watching it back now, and it just gives them so much extra life and energy and character. It's amazing. And speaking of amazing, I'm glad that Yuffie finally gets to do her pitch, her whole little
Very well rehearsed, I must say.
yeah, her very well rehearsed pitch, that she worked out all the kinks in the DLC, and she did it perfectly this time. And I also love that they kept up with like, oh hey, you guys are joining me. I'm not joining you. You're joining Team Yuffie. You need me. I don't need you. But then it also, well, we get our boy, our golden boy back. Good old Roche makes his grand return, and it couldn't have been any better, honestly. I guess I totally skipped over. So Yuffie, the reason why Yuffie is here, is because she's going to attempt to assassinate Rufus, and she's very nonchalant about it. She's very just like, yeah, I'm just gonna go up there and I'm just gonna kill him. Yeah, no big deal. I can do that. I'm a ninja. And then and then that makes me think, how many like assassinations has Yuffie done up until this point? Like, these are the questions that come up. I'm like, how are you, like, I mean, how good are you? Are you that good at this? Like, I'd be a little afraid if you were that good at assassinating anything more than a training dummy. But who knows? With the amount of bravado that she has, she could probably be like, yeah, I've killed like hundreds of people and had never killed anyone, and I'd believe it. It's like, yeah, sure, you seem confident enough. But yes, our boy Roche. I love what they did with him in this game. It's not exactly what I was hoping for. I still think that Jill says Yuffie's always carried by delusion. Yeah, I mean that is her superpower. I think that's the only way. Yuffie can only go about her life severely deluding herself, or else she has to think about the horrors. And we all know that we don't want to do that. So so maybe, but excuse me. Yeah, Roche. I in the lead up to this, I kind of wanted him to be the vibe check for Cloud, if not the party, where he would just like periodically show up and be like, "Hey," and we kind of get that. We kind of get that here a little bit. But it's not quite what I was visualizing when I was originally wanting that to happen. It was more just like, oh yeah, well, you just would be wandering the open world, and then he just shows up. And he's like, "Hey, we're gonna fight now," and he's like, "Okay." But we do get a couple of fights with Roche throughout this game. But yeah, and then we get a little bit of a preview here, and I love that everyone's just like, "Man, Cloud, you have some weird ass friends." It's like, he sure does. He's befriended all of the weirdos in Gaia. Well, not yet. We're almost
completely against as well. I mean, that's kind of the thing that makes this Cloud so endearing, is like the Misfits do love him. Like the Johnnies and the Roches, they love this guy.
He's just like, I don't care. He's just like, please stop talking to me.
And that just makes him like, oh, he's so cool. Nonchalant.
He's so cool and nonchalant and aloof. Oh, he's so rad. Yeah, and that's like definitely from Roche's angle for sure. He's very enchanted. We'll keep it at that, I guess. He's very enchanted by Cloud, and I love that it's a very one-sided thing, but it kind of gets reciprocated a little bit, as we'll talk about. But yeah, then that's kind of, and he kind of comes in and is like, "Hey, I'm supposed to bring you in, but I'm not going to do that. Meet me in the city, and we'll we'll fight it out, I guess." And that kind of leaves us off into. I guess that's when most people would start exploring and doing other stuff. I mean, we're gonna jump to everyone's favorite minigame. The dolphin one. Fucking dolphin wave race. Which I didn't
have... Racer 64!
Yeah, and what, did everyone think I was going to talk about the frog minigame? No. We're not going to talk about frog jumper. Frog fall guys. Which it's fine, whatever. But it's weird because I had seen a lot of people being like, and especially in our gang here, not liking the dolphin minigame. And it's fine compared to all the other minigames that we have in here. I think it was totally fine and serviceable.
We can't be serious.
Oh no, yeah, I don't remember exactly who said it, but I feel like somebody had said here that they did not like that minigame. But yeah, like I said, it's basically wave race for like a couple of minutes, and you do a cool flip off the dolphin. It's very, it's one of those like you do it and that's it. I mean, I never really went back and did any more with it, and that is kind of the unfortunate side effect to having a lot of these types of mini games in here, because it's just like, oh well, you do it the one time and you do it okay enough, and unless you want to get the whatever the maximum prize is, which I in my memory I feel like most of those times, like those top prizes were not like super important or like worth getting. Maybe, I don't know, maybe in the early game, I don't even remember what you would have gotten from it, but yeah, a lot of those like one I guess it'd be like narrative based mini games, which there are a few of them in here. Yeah, yeah, again, it's just kind of it's totally fine. I liked Wave Race 64 back in the day, and so I was like, oh great, I get to Wave Race. Yeah, that's about it. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I don't know. Was there anything else in the area, like the region of Junon? Oh, I think that was. This is also the first area where we get our reintroduction back to Fort Condor, which I was kind of. I like the premise of it for the proto relic and stuff like that, but I don't know. I kind of wanted Fort Condor to be like a just another thing you could do in the game. But again, maybe I'm being greedy because of all the other shit that they stuffed in here. But yeah, I don't know. I think, and we got Queen's Blood, and it's fine. It's great. I just feel like I loved Fort Condor so much in the Yuffie DLC. I was like, oh man, I hope that this becomes just like another thing that you can do, and maybe they will do that in the third game. Maybe it'll just be the third game is just gonna like, all right, here's fucking everything. You wanted everything, here's everything. We even put the chicken mini game back in there again. Back by popular demand. But yeah, I'm trying to. I don't think there was. Oh, and we get the quest that we do for Rhonda, and we have to escort Salmon, best boy, girl, Salmon, and that was a fun little quest, and that's that was, I remember, you bring Barrett along with you, and he's he's thinking about Marlene, and he's just like, oh sweetie, Daddy's coming home, and just a lot of I like a lot of the side quests in this game. We're not going to really go into super detail about all of them, but I think there are a bunch of ones in here that stand out, and again, give you more of those like character moments, and there's other little things that just kind of elevate the whole experience, but also is like not super, like, if you don't do it, then you're missing out on this huge story or character development. It's just more texture, and I feel like maybe that was the design philosophy with this game, is like just more texture. Gotta give everything more texture and depth, and round out the edges as much as we can, and give it all the K's detail. 12K detail on everything and everyone.
Yeah, man, you got to see those pores open up.
Yeah.
I want to see it.
And then we get Kyrie again, which, I mean, I wish I had an opinion on Kyrie, but I really don't feel like I do. Like, I know that I feel like people either are indifferent towards her or they really don't like her. And I'm definitely more on the indifferent side.
Maybe I'm easy to win over, but I think she's hilarious. I think the fact that she put all of her budget into marketing and none of it into being a functioning mercenary.
Into doing anything. Just put it all into merch.
The fact she wrote her own song, like, it's so funny.
I mean, that I will say, the her little theme song and stuff like that encounter
She's a jester.
was fun.
She's
Yeah,
nothing wrong with
she's
jester, but she's a good jester.
yeah, she's always just kind of like she's always just kind of there. She's almost like female Johnny. Not to be not to not to be like dismissive or deconstructive, I guess, but I feel like she kind of fills that same spot, and maybe that's why I'm like we already kind of got this with Johnny a little bit, and we get more Johnny later, and I feel like Johnny does better in this game. Well, I mean, he's also just in this game more than he was in Remake, and we didn't really, aside from our additional Fort Condor match, we didn't really get to see him all that much in the first game. But yeah, I mean, yeah, again, like I feel like with all the characters and stuff that are in here, she's fine. It's not. I don't dislike her. I'm not like super pumped about her either. She serves a purpose. Just don't ask me what that purpose is, because I don't know. And who knows? Maybe she'll have a crazy arc in the third game, and then
I don't think so, man. I think there's definitely story to get involved in Kyrie if you get into the kids are all right and everything that goes on with that.
Yeah. Right. I forgot. Yeah, she is involved with all that stuff there, right? So yeah, maybe we'll get a little bit more from her. The little bit that we had from her before in Remake, with her being related to the Angel of the Slums and stuff like that. I thought that was all well and good there too, and I knew that she would eventually be in this game too, and would be more involved than she was in the last game. But yeah, I don't know. It didn't. She never really. There was never at any point. Like when we go on the Shinra 8 on our way to Costa del Sol, and she misses the the boat. I'm like, oh, good. Okay, so maybe we won't see you for a little while. No, now it sounds like I'm being mean, but I'm not. Not trying to be. But yeah, I guess. Oh, and then there was that side quest where you gotta get the meat for that old guy, and he's like a David Attenborough type guy, and he's like, I'm about to die, and I want to see this mythical beast or whatever before I die. And I don't know, just again another like completely inconsequential quest, but I do, when I think about this area, I do think about this quest for some reason. That's just very sweet and very like wholesome,
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to think. I don't think there was much else around here. At least not that I can remember off the top of my head. So yeah, I guess we can mosey on over to going up into the city here. And oh yeah, I guess shouts out to Priscilla, and Dolphy. I don't know. No, that's not the name of the dolphin. I don't. Did the dolphin have a name? I don't remember actually. But shouts out. Sorry, totally not vamping. Because I do want to talk. I do want to talk about a specific individual. As we are making our way up there, we get our glorious reintroduction to Rufus in all of his HD glory, and all of his belts and flaps flapping about. But yeah, so actually, I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves. If oh no, okay, no, it is right there. So when we had the trailers for this game, there was a hooded individual that looked very Kingdom Heartsy, very Organization 13y, and you're surprised I knew that, right? that is right? It is Organization 13. Well, just pulling that number out of my ass.
Listen, you want me to take this a step further on you?
Sure.
Not only does this man give you Organization 13 vibes, but he's voice acted by the same guy as young Xehanort. And I'll leave it at that.
Oh, I definitely know what that means.
You know.
Yeah. But yeah, so we had one hell of a time trying to place bets on who this mysterious figure could have been. I stupidly, very stupidly, was like, "Oh, that's Sid. It's got to be Sid, right?" Even though it makes zero sense that it would be Sid. I just, I was manifesting, because we manifested Cisne into this game. I wanted to manifest him, like, we haven't seen Sid yet, and he better fucking be here. And then people were saying, like, oh, it could be, it could be Verdot, it could be, whoever. And then
was a good guess.
And then somebody said Glenn, and I was like, because, the only thing we had to go off of is that he was white, and that he had a beard/goatee. And I'm like, well, that doesn't, that narrows it down, but it also doesn't. Because it could, or it could be a brand new character, and technically it is, I guess. But then when someone said Glenn, I was like, that is probably the strongest one of them all. And and I forgot who said that initially here, but they were correct. It was Glenn, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, how and why and who? And for those of you who don't know, and I would love to hear from anybody who played this game and did not know or hear or play First Soldier before this, and just being like, who is this guy? Who is he? Oh, and Bree said that she had a theory that it was Genesis with a new look. I mean, Genesis with a beard might be kind of sick, but also I feel like it was completely... I feel like he's too pretty. That's like if Sephiroth had a beard,
you know? Beard at Genesis, they gotta go full blown like red.
Yeah, you get the when you get the Genova cells put in you, you can no longer grow facial hair. That's the trade-off. Forget the cellular degradation. It's that you can't grow any facial hair anymore. Which, I mean, if you think about it, have we seen a soldier with any facial hair? I don't know. I mean, that's probably just like a stylistic thing, sure, but
no, Chris, this is a good point. This is a good point.
Yeah?
I'm gonna say. I have nothing else to add other than that is a hell of a coincidence.
And technically, I mean, because people will say, well, hey, Glenn's a soldier, but he's just a dude. He's just a guy.
Who is?
Glenn.
But Glenn was a soldier.
Yeah, he is, but he doesn't have any of the cells in him, so he's able to have a beard.
We don't know that.
I mean, yeah, technically, yeah. I guess we do not know that he might have got topped up at some point, because
based on the way he's able to be wielded in Rebirth, it almost presumes that that's going to happen at some point.
You're totally correct, and I was just like, as you were saying it, I was having the revelation in my head. I'm like, oh wait, yeah, but but I guess I love that. I'm like, my brain is melting now. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess he does, but that is kind of the baffling thing to me, because I'm glad that Glenn is here, because I really like Glenn, at least a little bit that we see of him in First Soldier and stuff. But this is very clearly not the same character, because at least there has been such a period of time in between where, even if you have played Ever Crisis and you did play what was available for First Soldier at the time, you still wouldn't know how the fuck he got here. Even though they kind of spoil potentially that Rufus kills him, quote unquote, at some point. which is I'm like it's a really weird choice. Not only are you including this character that was introduced initially in the Battle Royale game, the failed Battle Royale of First Soldier, and then switched over to Ever Crisis, and which I feel like even less people were probably going to play. I mean, I don't know. I feel like there are, at least as far as the Mosey gang, I feel like there's a decent chunk of we have our own guild in there, by the way, plug. If anyone listening wants to join. Yeah, it's so bizarre, and that's when this is the first time I started feeling a little like, oh, are we actually drifting into like Kingdom Hearts territory a little bit, where we're introducing characters that like a very small fraction of people. I think I don't, maybe who knows, maybe everyone plays Ever Crisis, maybe every Final Fantasy VII fan plays Ever Crisis. I don't know, but it seemed weird to me, and especially kind of like this weird, like, oh, like there's this history here we don't know. Like, even if we know this character, there's a bunch of stuff that we don't know yet, and it's not in Ever Crisis yet. And is it going to be told in Ever Crisis, or are we going to wait until the third game when we eventually go to Wu Tai and see all the stuff? But anyway, I'm getting super far ahead of myself here. So it is the hooded man is revealed to be Glenn, and not only is he here in the flesh, but he is also a representative from Wu Tai, which also, yeah, actually no, that's something that's probably the most believable thing about it, or at least the thing that like I'm like, oh, okay, like considering how things have gone and how the little bit that we've seen in First Soldier, and like, okay, like he clearly does not like Shinra, right? So it would make sense that him and his squad would defect essentially to Wu Tai, I guess, during the war that would have been brewing at that time, or in the initial stages of starting. And who knows, maybe we have yet to be delighted with even more war crimes that will disgust Glenn and his squad to be like, maybe we shouldn't. I mean, we already like that. I feel like they already kind of had that moment in the that first chapter that we've had of First Soldier, but there could be more, and I'm curious to see it. But again, this is very baffling that they've introduced this character in this way, and then as we find out later, of course, spoilers, obviously, I guess, but it's not him, but it is him. It's Genova. But it's like, is it like, so is the actual Glenn really dead, and it's just Genova being like, hey, I'm gonna, do the thing like Sephiroth said, and it could take the form of people you love and hate and whatever. So is it only just that? Is it just a reference for all the gotcha heads out there? I don't know. And that's and we don't really get that many answers here. Aside from just kind of like Rufus kind of nonchalantly being like, kind of like, all right, I mean, I definitely shot you in the head because they show us, but then he's here, not wearing any shoes, and he's got this crazy Kingdom Hearts robe on. But this is this was the first time where I was like, I don't know what they're doing here. I don't know if this is literally just Genova or Sephiroth toying with Rufus, and that maybe that's just it. Maybe it's not any deeper than that. But I mean, come on, it's fucking Final Fantasy. it's Square. There's got to be something going on here deeper than that, or not. Maybe not. Maybe I'm punking myself ahead of time. I'm pre-punking myself. But I don't, like I said, I really like Glenn and the bits that we had seen of him, and I was very excited to see more of him here, but it's not really him. Or is it? I don't know. But I'm glad he's here. I'm glad we got to see him, and he's definitely. I mean, and honestly, I had seen
more than I thought I would. I have to be honest. Like I really ended up liking him more than I thought I would. Because again, while a lot of the main story beats are in line with the original, one of the cool things about him, it's just like everything is new.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's one of the few
what we know about the original.
fully new characters in here that is seemingly very important to at least maybe not this game in particular, but I feel like will be very important in the third game when we do go to Wutai and see what the hell's going on over there. And I had seen some people saying, I don't really agree with any of that. I think this is just people people being people on the internet, but a lot of people were saying like, wow, this guy is Cloud's dad. And I'm like, I don't think so. I mean, I can see where people might look at Glenn and be like, the resemblance is there. It's definitely like, you maybe would be able to fool a Face ID. Maybe. But and you kind of just like the way his hair is, and he's got the blue eyes, and but I don't know. I don't think we need that. I don't think if the only reason that they brought Glenn in here was to reveal that he is Cloud's dad, I'd be a little underwhelmed with that, if I'm being honest. I'd be like, oh well, he doesn't have to be connected to. He could just be his own guy. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't always like when.
I mean, red herrings are red herrings, right?
Yeah. I think it could totally be a red herring for sure.
Well, have you seen that meme that's been going around the internet now that like there's the PS5 Pro version of FF7 Rebirth, and people are showing the difference between the PS5 and PS5 Pro, and in the PS5 in Cloud's home you just see like a painting in the background, but in the PS5 Pro they put like a Photoshop picture of like young Cloud and Glenn. Like I'd look at the PS5 Pro.
the power of the PS5 Pro. Yeah, you can only see this if you have the PS5 Pro.
It's so funny.
If we ever actually get to that level one day, man, that's when I'll know. That's when I'll know that we are cooked as a society. You should be like, yeah, no, you gotta drop a whole $700 on a new console just to see JPEG. Oh, that'd be wild. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't really necessarily want to harp on too much about that theory, but I saw it was I had seen it cropping up enough places to where I'm like, the people are not. This is not people just being trolls. Like they're people that are genuinely thinking that this guy, and for all I know, he could be. I could be looking like the asshole in 2 or 3 years whenever we get this third game, or whenever Ever Crisis gets more episodes added to it, but. I don't know. I guess to wrap up the Glenn feature. I'm happy he's here. I wish he was in it more, but I also feel like he will, or his visage will be more in the third game, because they're obviously setting up all the stuff with Wutai, and they're going and the fact that they're setting all that stuff up this early is like that makes my ears perk up a little bit and be like, okay, like I'm paying attention. Like you're setting up. This is all brand new information, brand new events happening. Like these are the parts where I'm kind of phoned in here, or zoned in rather. And yeah, but ultimately we don't get too much of him here. He just kind of is like, oh, got some big shoes to fill, or whatever. He's kind of just being like a villain almost. And that's another thing too, where that's maybe in my initial playthrough of this, before I found out what he actually is, I was like, this doesn't seem like the character that, I mean, but again, a lot of fucked up shit happens in the first Soldier, at least from what we see so far. So I'm like, he doesn't really, I don't know, it wasn't it was definitely, something definitely seemed off about him from the get-go, and which, if anything, I guess that's good, that if, even the little bit that we do know of him from Ever Crisis, and being like, this doesn't, like, this seems, something's fishy about this whole situation. And I'm not talking about him walking around without any shoes on. That's just, it's custom, you know? he's, he's an honorary Wu-Taiyan, so, maybe that's, don't judge his culture. But, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Did you have any other, anything to say about Glenn? He doesn't really, it's like we don't really see him again for a while, so.
I think it's interesting that, obviously we're leading towards, I'll save it for his later appearance in the chapters. That's what I was about to go on. Mm-hmm. I'll save this for when he appears in the later chapter. But all in all, he's one of the inclusions that I think actually really spices a lot of this story up a little bit.
Yeah, big time.
I hope they don't put him too close to the core of the story. But I think he's one of several examples that part 3 is going to be pretty Sephiroth-centric. And I think he's going to play a big part of that.
1,000%. And that's, and I saw some people also being like concerned a little bit that they were going to put a lot of that stuff in Ever Crisis and then just assume that you're going to play it through Ever Crisis. I believe I was talking about this with Bree not that long ago. Because I was kind of thinking, I'm like, is it going to be like Kingdom Hearts where they're just going to be like, hey, you didn't play Ever Crisis, you're just not going to know what's going on here. Which, is something very easily remedied by, looking it up on YouTube. Or, play through it yourself, I guess, if you like. But, kind of, I feel like that was also the thing with, with Kingdom Hearts. It's like, do you have a Game Boy Advance? No, here's these cutscenes. And that's okay. That's fine. Although I still have, like, a weird relationship with forcing you to ingest other media in order to know what's going on. Like, I don't know. It's kind of, it's a hard thing to discuss just because it's like, yeah, there are some things like if you're, if you start on the ground floor and then you're doing all the, like the MCU, for example, right? Like if you started at the ground floor and you were just watching along, like it's not that big of a deal, whatever. But, like, imagine trying to get someone to get into the MCU now. And, like, oh, yeah, here's, like, 3 weeks worth of shit you need to watch, to get up there. And it's just like, I don't know. Like, it does make the story more enriching, I feel like, if you do and you play through it and, but I don't know. I feel like, especially here, I'm just like, they could, with all the other stuff that's in here, I feel like they absolutely, I feel like would at least touch upon the, like, young Sephiroth stuff in the third game, right? I feel like they would have to.
They have to.
Or maybe they're just like, no, play Ever Crisis, nerd. You want to do it. You want to. you want those legendary pulls. You want that battle pass, or you want that Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis season pass or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I think you're absolutely right that part 3 is absolutely going to be Sephiroth centric, and if that is the case, then Glenn will absolutely be a part of that because he is pretty quintessential to Sephiroth's story, I would say. Is that, or Alex said, or a flashback of Sephiroth fighting Glenn? Yeah, because we do, and that was actually, man, that was actually like the first trailer that we saw for Ever Crisis, right? When Sephiroth is in the rain and he's calling Genesis on the phone. And that was another thing too. When people were saying that it was Glenn, that was the first thing that came into my mind was that trailer, because you see him in that cloak, in that it's not the exact same, I don't think, but that was the thing that, like, I looked at, like, oh, okay, like, yeah, that's Glenn. That's 100% Glenn. And then somehow he winds up from there to here. But yeah, I don't know. I think they absolutely will be touching upon Sephiroth and his origin story. And yeah, because I feel like it's too quintessential to the greater story now, that where they could leave it to Ever Crisis, but I don't know. I think they would have to, because they can't do a thing where they're like, oh, because at this point they could have been like, oh yeah, you don't need to know anything about Final Fantasy to play this, man. And that's another thing too. If there's anyone listening to this, and because we had the same thing when Remake came out, but if there's anyone who if they actually listen to Katase or Nojima or whoever was that said that you could start with Rebirth and not having played anything prior, I really want to hear from you and what the hell you thought about any of this stuff. Because even if the Glenn stuff aside, I mean, I can't believe that they actually said that. Because I mean, you absolutely could play this game without having played anything else. I just feel like you're not going to feel anything. Or I don't know, or at least maybe not for a good chunk of the game, because then they're referencing things that you're like, what? Huh? Who? But then I think even over the course of this game, I feel like maybe you spend enough time with these characters and, you can become attached enough to them to where, you can be invested in the story. But I feel like you'd be missing out on so much stuff. So much.
I know, there's some truth to what you're saying, but at the end of the day, I feel like because we've been fans of this our whole lives.
Yeah, it's how can we possibly? Yeah, it's hard to really be able to truly say, because we're always we know all the minutia and all the other stuff that is like, oh yeah, of course we would know this, and of course we know this reference or whatever. But yeah, it's almost impossible for me to imagine going into a game like this blind and just being like, yeah, who's this? Who's black-haired Cloud? Why is Aerith dead? Wait, what? Huh? What's going on? But that's why I would love to hear from somebody if that was anyone listening to this. If that was your first exposure to this franchise, I would love to know what was going through your mind when playing through this game, because there's just so much. But speaking of, yeah, we're sorry we got a little bit tied up on Glenn there, but I guess we can mosey on over to probably, I think this might be one of my favorite sections in the entire game, to be honest with you. The whole Upper Junon section, where Cloud and Aerith and Tifa have to do the ceremony and stuff, and they get all dressed up, and I think one of my favorite parts is rounding up the different members of the troop that you're going to be commanding.
I only want to talk about Rude and the Bald Cult.
Oh man, that's where I was going to go next.
I'm just cutting right to it because I can't even hold back. There are a few things that make me put the fucking controller down, because I can't focus on anything else other than my laughter. I couldn't believe it was real. I couldn't believe it was real. I want to know specifically who's responsible for it.
Yeah, whose idea was this? How does this bar make enough money to stay open? Unless there are people that are like, oh man, like
memberships.
Bar, man. Like, oh yeah, memberships. Absolutely, you're right. You're totally right. They got their own, like it's like Dave and Buster's, Dave and Baldsters. Got their own currency, it's like that episode of It's Always Sunny. Like, yeah, it's free money, man. But yeah, I honestly, it's I still don't know what to think of all that, because that wasn't an OG, right? I feel like I would have remembered that, although I don't. Or maybe I don't. Maybe there was like a more of a smaller reference to it, and not. I don't know.
The Bald Cult, because that definitely wasn't an OG.
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure that is a new thing here, and I'm like, how? Whose idea was this? I mean, it's a creative way to have Rude in here,
I've never wanted to be more bald in my life. I was ready to go beautiful after all, baby. I'd have no problem doing that. Again, I know we just cut to it. You were going into a nice bit. I'll back it up now. But man, more of that, please.
Yeah. It was so goofy and wacky. I loved it because I was just fucking.
When they rub their heads.
Yeah. and you hear that we. Yeah, it's and the little song that they have and stuff. It's so like weird, and I feel like it is definitely bizarre and like just a
Chris,
smidge out of place.
Chris, they had a derogatory term for people with hair.
Oh right, yeah. What
are you three mop heads?
Mop heads, yeah.
Just think of this, like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if we did this? No, they spent a day on this.
They take it very seriously too. They're like, oh, you can't roll with us until we see that noggin. and also I love that, like, Rude and any of the other characters that would have known us. My personal headcanon is that they know that it's Cloud and them, and they're just like, whatever. Like, what are they? They're just, they're just minding their own thing. That's fine, I mean, I guess they did have that whole thing in the caves of like, don't get in our ways, we won't get in yours. I mean, I feel like Rude definitely would have if you like showed that you didn't have a bald head, he probably would have then taken the opportunity to be like, oh right, let's take this outside and and start some fun. But yeah, that the whole thing. And then my second favorite part is when you go to the little jazz bar that they have, and Elena's there getting wasted. This shit sucks, man. It's like I just want you to take it seriously, I love the Turks, man. I think that the Turks could literally do anything. They could literally just be sitting there doing nothing, and I'll be like, you're just so neat and great. This place is for the clean shaven.
Honestly, that's why it's like a Before Crisis remake would really be the jam.
Yeah, man. I that's another thing that kind of bummed me out about this, is that there was no or in this game in particular, there was really no other. I mean, we got Cisne, and trust me, I'm not trying to be greedy. I'm definitely counting my blessings that we actually got Cisne back in this thing. Which, hey, if they were gonna bring back any other Turk, that's the one you should. So. And who knows? Maybe the third game we'll get some more of them in there. We get some jobber Turks, maybe. Good old the beloved return of Shotgun would be very much welcomed.
My crackpot theory is that Shotgun grew up to become the commander.
You know what? That would be pretty hilarious. that would be pretty great, actually.
She's what's her name? Aren't she sisters with Elena? Isn't she?
Why did that wrong? Is she?
Why did I think Shotgun and Elena were sisters?
No, because they're definitely you're definitely on something here, man. I'm like. I'm having a brain blast, but it's not going anywhere. Because I do remember Elena having a sister that was in the Turks, but I don't remember if it was Shotgun or not. If it was another character that I'm just blanking on right now. And I'll definitely allow some time for for you to look it up. And Bree was saying Rufus and Sung definitely know it's them. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, they definitely. I feel like I love the idea. They're just like, yeah, sure, like, yeah, just you guys are just. Why you guys dressed up in our uniforms and walking around? That's not suspicious at all. But yeah, and the fact that like literally every other group of the Shinra troopers here, they're all just goobers. I love the fact that they portray a lot of like the like lesser people in Shinra. Like they're just a bunch of goobers. They're just, people who, like, yeah, they signed up after high school and they're like, yeah, this is my job now. I wanna build Gunpla of the Junon canon. That's all I want to do. Oh, was it Gun? Was Elena's sister? Okay. Yeah, because
Okay.
it was another. It wasn't Shotgun, but it was. I think I do remember there being just a gun Turk.
So maybe this is Gun.
Maybe it's Gun. Maybe Gun is Mitsuru commander of the was it the Midgar 7th Infantry, because of course it's the 7th Infantry. And I also would be remiss if I didn't also comment on how much I like that when you do round up your fellow goons, and then they do like they bring their arms up and they do the hup 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 hup. And love that as you are gathering them, they're just following you around, and they're just like, hey, Captain, hey, sir, how you doing? And they're just like and then by the end you just have like this massive crowd of troopers following you around, being like, yeah, let's fucking do it. I love how I love it, man. I this whole entire sequence is great, and I love how Cloud also gets more invested in it as time goes on, and then to the point where like he's supposed to be giving them a rousing speech, right, to get them in the mood, and at first he's like, I don't really know what to do, and then was Aerith like takes over for a little bit, and then he's like, yeah, and then we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do that, and we're gonna do this, and then he like gets really carried away. I'm just like, I love seeing those moments with Cloud, because it's like, yeah, he's also a goober, maybe the biggest one actually. Under all the the tough guy facade, he is just he's just a nerd. He's just a goofy little guy, and love to see that. And I'm just trying to think of what to say about the actual ceremony and the mini game, which I mean is like just kind of like a less exciting quote unquote version of the Honeybee Inn minigame, which I mean at least it's definitely more it's more readable, I guess, because there's no like crazy wacky camera movements going on, and you're trying to like, I'm trying to look at the dance moves, but I gotta time it, and yeah, I mean, it again, totally serviceable for what it's supposed to do, and hey, if you know me, I love a rhythm game, even though this is definitely not a rhythm game. Definitely was not. It's like kind of, sort of, but not really. Not as much of a rhythm game as the one for the Honeybee Inn was. But yeah, I think it was great. It's one of the more, I don't know, entertaining mini games out of the ones I would probably rate this one above the Dolphin minigame. And out of all the mini games that we would have had so far, I probably would say that this is my favorite one. Maybe because Fort Condor was there too, so I don't know. But I did really enjoy this sequence a hell of a lot, and was, as soon as we saw this sequence in the trailers, I was like, oh boy, I can't wait to see what they do. And hey, it's I think it's handled a lot better than it was in OG, because I remember being very frustrated with OG. Just being like, what do I do? What the fuck is going on? And everyone in the audience being like, doesn't this guy know he's on TV? Or whatever they say. What's that guy up to? But yeah, I mean, it's it's very grand and showy, very very Shinra, what you would come to expect from a Shinra celebration. I guess all things considered. Did you win the recommendation when you played?
Yes.
Or the commendation, I should say.
Yes, it did.
Yep. And because I didn't even know that you could not win it, but I had seen other people play it, and they did not do as well. And like, oh yeah, Roche's squad can definitely win. Not the one where you get to talk to Rufus, but there's that other one before. Yeah, Bree said that her conspiracy theory is that you physically can't succeed the welcoming ceremony in OG. I'm like, you know what? I maybe that makes me feel a little bit better about myself. So I will also throw my hat into that corner for sure. Yeah, I was just trying to see here. Yeah, I loved the whole sequence with the cannon and everything. I love to see the Junin cannon because I feel like we never really get to see it, and we probably won't see it do anything for quite some time. So I was like, okay, cool, we get to see it, and I'm surprised everyone here is not deaf. But the sound of that thing, or just crushed from the the sonic waves that thing must produce. But hey, I'm not a scientist, so. But yeah, I guess we can just kind of mosey on along to the end of the ceremony, and and what we were sort of alluding to before, and all the like, oh, what do how are these guys able to navigate through all these areas and stuff, and not be just hunted down at every possible corner? Well, they kind of address that and be like, all right, well, our squad wins, and then we get to have our little audience with Rufus, which I was like, man, this is kind of spicy of them to just be having it right out in the open like this, but they go ahead and do that, and Rufus is very much like, yeah, you know what, I really don't want any beef with you guys. Like, I know my dad was like, kind of all about the, whatever, like, but I don't really give a shit about that. I want Sephiroth dead. And I don't have the time or the resources to be chasing after this guy, so you guys are already doing it, so you don't work for us, but our interests are aligned in this instance. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. That's something like, okay, they can do that. And then Yuffie, of course, follows through on her plan and attempts to assassinate him, and then probably in like the most contrived way possible, Rufus is like, oh, so that's your play, huh? It's like, oh, come on, Rufus, you're supposed to, come on. You're supposed to be smarter than this. But I understand, like, they had to, things had to be a certain way, and that's why I was very confused at first. Is like, oh yeah, we're gonna like team up, even though we do, they do kind of team up in OG a little bit later on, at least with the Turks. But yeah, I was very kind of thrown off by that, but also found it very hilarious. He's like, yeah, I'm all cool, and then like someone who like, oh, I got this giant ninja star thrown at me. Oh, I guess that must have been you guys, huh? Yeah, we're standing right here, but yeah, sure. We don't know. They should know everything about our party members, and it's like, do you know any of us who has a giant ninja star? Come on, man. Very clearly Wu-Tai, but it's all right. I'll let it slide, even though it's a little bit weird and contrived.
But remember, there's that Avalanche Wu-Tai conspiracy, man.
That is true. And it's if anything, Cloud should have been like, was that? Oh, so that's your play, huh?
Yo, dude, the mind fuck.
Yeah, turn the tables on him and be like, oh, okay. You're trying to be all buddy with us, and then here you are trying to fucking push your weird, Wu-Tai agenda.
No, man, listen.
Us, huh?
We got to talk about the fact Heidegger took one for the team.
He did. He, Heidegger said well about the man.
Why? Wasn't he bitter? Wasn't he bitter about Rufus? And now Sung was like number 2, and Heidegger used to be like, But why? Is he just trying to get into the good graces, or is there something?
See,
more
now
to him?
that's interesting, because I
Is there
do
something
feel
more
like it
to
is
hide?
that, because he's just like, I think he likes his job a little too much to be like, oh well, if I just sit here and let this happen, like, you know, at least he'll be like, oh, I can get, maybe Rufus will pat me on the head later, you know, he'll give me a bonus this year or something, you know, get a little bit of something out of it.
He better. His Christmas bonus better be fucking 5 figures. After that shit.
Yeah, and then, you know, and then he'll be like, oh yeah, here you go, Heidegger. Here's you know, an extra, you know, couple thousand gil or something, and also, we're gonna do Secret Santa this year, and yours is Hojo. So good luck with that. Man, imagine getting Hojo in Secret Santa. Actually, well, that actually might be simpler. That more simpler than I'm thinking it could be. You just get him. I don't know. You get him. Well, now I'm shooting myself in the foot, because I wouldn't know what to get Hojo for Secret Santa. But now I'm thinking about what the other directors would get each other in a Secret Santa. So, I don't know why. I don't know why that's so funny to me. Just the idea of these wacky, over the top villain characters doing like very fun, like mundane stuff is always like a very funny idea to me. Just get him a terrarium. Yeah, imagine Hojo getting you in Secret Santa, right? Exactly, and you meaning that you could take that multiple ways. That either he gets me or he gets me. You know what I mean? Hopefully not the other kind. But yeah. So then, of course, you know, after the assassination attempts, things are chaotic, and Rufus gives a big thumbs up as he's being carried off stage. Topical. And and then we kind of get on to, you know, my other favorite section of this chapter, and that's slumming it with the Midgar 7th. And man, what a perfect little arc that the Midgar 7th Infantry is. Imagine, like, it's just so perfect. I feel like it's just so, you know, such a nice little like microcosm. You know, like these guys are like, we're just, you know, regular goobers, but we're also like, we're gonna fucking, you let us win, man. You made us win, and we're gonna ride or die for you. And it's like, oh, fellas, I don't even know you, and you shouldn't want to know me. But I love that. I love that whole arc with them, and that they're like, oh, I don't know, like, are you the bad guy? Like, no, we're just messing with you, Cap. We know it couldn't be you, but, you know, obviously, you know, you got things you got to do or whatever. But yes, I love, and yes, and we had talked about this when I streamed this part of the game on the Discord not that long ago, and had the fun little thought that the Midgar 7th Infantry would be the crew of the High Wind when we eventually get the High Wind, and I think that would be amazing, spectacular even, and I hope that's the case, and I'll be very upset if it's not. So I know that we manifested Cisne for Rebirth, so I'm just, you know, I'm putting it out, into the universe.
We can put our energy towards that.
7th, everyone, put your hands in the air. give us your powers to manifest the Midgar 7th Infantry being the High Wind crew when when we eventually get there in the third game. I mean, hey, the High Wind is there. You know, High Wind's in Junin, so maybe that's subtle foreshadowing, perhaps. Well, I mean, it obviously is for the High Wind itself, but hopefully it's a subtle foreshadowing for our boys getting to be the crew and being in there because they deserve a little extra time, and I feel like because I think a lot of people have that same feeling about them also, so I feel like there's enough fan clamoring out there that loves the good old boys at the Midgar 7th. So I feel like they'll make a return. You know, I feel like they will. I'm gonna hold that one in my heart, and hopefully, hopefully it comes true.
It, man. We can take all that Cisne and Rebirth energy and give it to the 7th Infantry. I'm for it.
Yeah, because there's nothing I don't know, because I feel like Cisne was like such a I'm like they're not gonna put her back in. They're not gonna do that. And then was pleasantly surprised otherwise. So hey man, if and I can't think of anything else necessarily that I would be thinking of like, oh man, we need to manifest this into this game. So for now, you know, until maybe definitely don't put it into Azul. Azul stock is down, Midgar 7th stock is up. Okay, so that's where we're gonna keep it. But yeah. Oh, and then we get our inaugural fight with Roche in now, and this is when I was envisioning kind of before when I was talking about when I was envisioning Roche in this game. This is very much more in line with what I was expecting, and just the presentation of it all, and you know the music and everything. Honestly, and I'm a little biased. Like at this point in the game, this is easily by far my favorite boss fight. At this point in the game, I want to make that very clear. But I loved it. It's great. I love it's like the Thunderdome essentially, or that big. For some reason it makes me want to think of the, like the Barnum and Bailey circus. They'd have like the guys in the motorcycles in the metal cage, like that kind of that whole thing. But yeah, it's fun. I love it, and I also love that by the end of it, Cloud's like, yeah, all right. I guess you're not that bad. I guess you're pretty all right. And then and then we won't see him again for quite some time. But yeah, I loved everything about it. It's very and it's also for if people remember way back in when we were covering Remake and I was talking about Roche and that he kind of gave off a Majima energy from the Yakuza games, if anyone's familiar. This pushes this to 11. It pushes that to 11 because Majima essentially does this exact same thing in Yakuza 0, and it's when this whole thing was unfolding, I'm like, this is what I wanted. This is who this guy should be all the time. He should have a band traveling with him. He needs to have the whole brass section and a drummer with him at all times. Just like in Mad Max, he just has he's just pulling a trailer with with a band on it all the time. And still doing all the crazy tricks and everything. So they just all right, oh, Roche is about to do some tricks. All right, guys, buckle up. Things are about to get bumpy. But yeah, I mean, dude, this whole entire chapter is great, and I think just this last section of it just really for me is just like chef's kiss, and yeah.
This was definitely the chapter where I realized I was playing this chapter made me I always knew Rebirth was going to be a good game, especially from what they were able to show off pre-release.
Mm-hmm.
But it was after playing this chapter, I was like, man, I can't wait to see what else they have in store.
Right, yeah, this is when I, if I wasn't already sold on the game, months, years in advance, this would have sold me. If I was any skeptical at all about this game, this would have been the thing to seal the deal for me. Okay. this is actually fucking amazing, and then it also just makes me a little sad because it's like because Roche is not and I noticed what you said before, Bree, and then I'm noticing it now as I'm looking at Roche's face. He has a fucking he has a chin strap, so my whole soldiers can't grow facial hair theory is just full of holes. I gotta go back to the drawing board on that one, but I think there's something there. There's something, I think. And I think Angeal also has he has a goatee too, doesn't he? Sorry, Angeal, I forgot. I'm too used to looking at your young version now that I forgot what your old version looks like. But yeah, man, it's great. This whole chapter is great, and then of course the big the send off that you get with the Midgar 7th, and you have that little like fake out of like oh shit they found Cloud out, and then they're like, oh whoa, hey no, like just joking, like you don't what exactly do they say? They're like, oh, you don't have to take the joke that far, Captain. uh when meanwhile Cloud was literally about to murder all of them right there. So and then they're like, yeah, we get it, man. And then anytime that I play this game, what I will do, and I've done every time since, is that as you're riding the elevator down, you have to watch them. Because they stay there all the way up until you get down to the Shinra 8, and then there's another cutscene that plays. But last time when I played, I looked, I'm like, they stand there, and they wait, and they watch you go. And I'm like, those you can't buy that kind of loyalty. You know what I'm saying?
No.
That's the real stuff. That's the real shit. And I love that they're just they're just guys that we just met like 20 minutes ago, and they're like, oh yeah, we'll die for you. It's like we're already, man, that social link's really getting up there. And but yeah, I mean, and that's and then I I love that it's like, yeah, all this crazy stuff, and then like, yeah, and then the chapter just kind of ends. After that, we get aboard the Shinra 8 and on our way to Costa del Sol and meet Captain Titov, and yeah, I mean, that's chapter 4. It is very abrupt. So it's just like, oh, yep. We have all this it was a great crescendo of events happening, and then you get a little, now we're gonna relax. Definitely nothing wrong gonna happen on this cruise ship. It's fine. Barrett looks good in his sailor outfit, which I didn't comment on that before, by the way, but Barrett in this sailor outfit, absolutely everything I wanted it to be in this game, 1,000%. And I love that he loves it, and that he's like, yeah, I look good. This shit feels great. I want to wear it more.
Suits him well.
Yeah, it does. It absolutely does. But yeah, I guess I think because there's a we don't do we get our little reveal that we got some other familiar faces on this boat. I don't know if that's at the beginning of the next chapter or not. Well, we see Kyrie missing the boat, which haha, funny. No, and that is in the next one. But I guess we'll save that for next time. We've been running here for quite a while. This is this was a girthy boy.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot in here. There's a lot, and like I said earlier, this is by far definitely like a standout chapter for me, and is easily up there, like top 3, top 5 favorite chapters of this whole entire game. And if anything, just for that last segment in Upper Junon, like everything from the minute that you get up there to the minute you leave is like just a roller coaster of things happening, and I could not be happier about how it went and how that was all portrayed. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It feels weird to just like end the episode now, but
I mean, again, like you said, the chapter does come kind of to an abrupt end.
It's very abrupt, and it's very like yep. And we continue on later and see some familiar faces and some new ones. Maybe a Queen's Blood playing robot, which I have some questions about that guy. Like who made you? Why do you exist? Well, maybe he shouldn't think about that one. That usually goes down. You start asking a robot why they exist, it usually ends badly for somebody. But yeah, like I said, I love this chapter. It's great. It's got a little bit of everything. I feel like it's got the intrigue. It's got funny, wacky, goofy stuff. We got the serious heart-to-heart moments. It's like a nice little. Honestly, like if the demo of Rebirth was just like this entire chapter, which would have been way too much, but if they were to do that, I feel like this is a really good vertical slice, as they like to call of this game, and like what it's all about and everything that's in like everything that this game, I don't want to say represents, but for lack of a better term, like every aspect of this game I feel like is represented here, and represented well also. You get a little bit of everything. And yeah, I don't know. Was there any? Did you have any closing statements there, Nick?
Chapter 4.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I would just reiterate what I said before. This was the chapter that made me want to not stop playing. Mm-hmm. Right? RPGs typically take a little bit of time to lift off.
A little bit of a little startup period,
especially one as big and expansive as this. Mm-hmm. But upon completing this chapter, I was just like, I did not want to put the game down. So,
like, hell yeah.
Honestly, one of the more memorable moments in this journey, especially when you consider that, as far as these breakdowns and the story's going to go, it's a story that moves very slowly. Not a whole lot actually happens. But in this chapter, a lot does. And that's what makes it so fun.
Yeah, and that's what really, like, it's a lot of build up. Everything prior to this was just build up and kind of like setting the stage and setting the tone. You get a little bit of action and calm, and then you dip right back down. Then you're in the Mithril Mines, which, I kind of like. I do like the Mithril Mines section for, little things here and there, but ultimately kind of just, like it's one of those traversal chapters where you're just like, oh, we're just getting from point A to point B, some wacky hijinks in between, and that's kind of it. But yeah, like I was saying, this chapter is kind of the first one that gives you everything. It gives you a little bit of everything for every possible appetite. It scratches all the itches. And yeah, I still want to know what the fuck Glenn's doing here, or his visage, because I really like saying that word. But yeah, I guess if we got nothing else going on here, I guess we can let these poor people go. Listening to us ramble for longer than usual this time. We're coming around to me. Still don't know what our longest episode is, but this might be up there a little bit. But yeah, I guess thanks everyone for coming by. We appreciate you all and appreciate your support and patience. And you wanna count us down, Nick?
I would love to. Are you ready?
Yeah, of course.
3, 2, 1. I did
that with my teeth closed. I don't know why. Try to spice it up every once in a while, All right.
Well, we did pretty well until I messed up the music that is still going because it didn't want to play.
That's all right.
But we're still technically live. I just wanted to jump on and point out. And of course, it went smooth up until this last little bit.
Hey, man, that's totally fine. That's
breaks.
Totally perfect. It's the Midgar Minute, baby. That's what we're all about. We get 98% of the way there, you know?
I feel like it's just the Midgar Minute attitude. You just gotta mosey on through it.
Mosey on through, exactly, as we are known to do.
All right. Well, I'm gonna stop the stream. Thanks everybody for tuning in. If there were any technical difficulties, feel free to mention them either in the chat or the Discord.
Yeah.